I wish you would put Stephen Guilbeault in your crosshairs as you're doing.
Is he an engineer?
He's an environmental zealot. He happens to be our environment minister federally. And I guess if you put that question to him, he believes he has the expertise and knowledge to tell us in Alberta how to run our power grid. I don't know if you know much about Stephen Guilbeault. I don't know if I've ever heard you talk about him.
I'm wanting to learn less just by your description.
Well, one thing I find so offensive, I mean, you talk about the disrespect to our province. This is a guy who is an environmental advocate. He's best known for scaling the CN Tower in opposition of fossil fuels when he was working as an environmental advocate. But he also scaled the house of our premier.
So he's a rock climber, not an engineer.
He's maybe he'd be better at that. But imagine that. Imagine somebody going and taking a criminal offense, going onto the roof of a premier, and then they make that person in charge of trying to dictate to us how to pull our resources out of ground, how to manage our natural resources, how to manage our electricity grid. That's what Justin Trudeau has done. So I'm trying to get him fired, and I would love your help on that.
It seems like for decades, the kind of rich kid lifestyle liberalism that now dominates everything was confined to kind of sociology departments at liberal arts colleges. Who made the decision to allow people like that to have control over medical schools, power grids, airlines? That seems like a bad idea.
Well, I wonder if you've got the same dynamic in the US. One of the things that I've noticed here as conservatives is that we have vacated all of the opinion-shaping institutions in society. So we vacated the media. The media is now almost, with the exception of some of the alternative media I mentioned, they are almost all of a particular mindset, a progressive mindset. The universities, and Dr. Peterson speaks of this very well, almost uniformly are they of an ideology that penalizes kids, quite frankly. If they want to write a paper about conservatism, they get marked down. You hear about that regularly. If you look at Hollywood, Hollywood's terrible when it comes to the messages and how they portray conservatives, how they portray capitalism. And I think as well, we have increasingly become urbanized. And so I suppose when you get disconnected from the land, disconnected from something real, disconnected from the dirty jobs, then do you understand that when you turn the lights on it, they only work because of everything that is happening out in the rural area. When you go and fill up your car, it's only happening because we've been able to have people who are developing our natural resources. I think that's one of the disconnects that we end up having.
I think that's such a smart analysis and totally true. But providing electricity to your population is not some kind of like boutique add-on you get if you pay extra taxes. That's like a baseline requirement of being a state. And if you can't provide electricity, you're a failed state, right?
I think you may be surprised to hear me praise Michael Moore, because I think he has done more to recalibrate what we need to be thinking about with electricity. Prior to his movie, Planet of the Humans, I think there was this ideology that all you had to do is put up wind and solar and batteries and you get free electricity. And I think people actually believed that that was true. They didn't talk about the intermittency, nor did they talk about the fact that wind and solar aren't truly carbon neutral. I mean, you can't make a wind turbine without steel. Lots of carbon that goes into that. Fiberglass as well, lots of carbon that goes into that. The cement at the base, there's lots of carbon that goes into that. And the truckloads that it takes to get it to site, all of that is gasoline and diesel. But that's the kind of the piece that he put together, is he realized that you can't have wind and solar without a heavy reliance on fossil fuels. And I think it blew up the paradigm. And so now we're beginning to have a more honest conversation about what that looks like. But I think that there is this fantasy thinking that because people don't know how things work, that they believe that these simplistic solutions that are offered by politicians are actually achievable. And it makes it harder for conservatives and politicians who do have to actually make things work to kind of bust through, especially when you've got the media stacked against you and trying to get the message out, and try to make people realize that these things matter. We can transition over time to reduce emissions so that we have less impact on the environment, and that's all great. But affordability and reliability have got to be top of mind for anybody making decisions that impact people's lives.
So You literally have no solar-powered steel furnaces in Canada.
Not one.
Okay. Last question, because we're almost out of time, and I'm, again, so thankful that you're willing to do this. Where do you think this goes? You just said that your province, which is the energy-rich province of your country, was almost out of electricity just recently. So does this, if at the current trajectory, it'll be Bolivia in terms of its power grid. Does that get better soon, or does it continue to get? What's your projection?
Well, fortunately, we do have people who've soldiered on and are going to bring on new baseload natural gas power in the new year. So that will stabilize on that front. Yeah. We also, I would like to take a page out of what the Americans are doing, really, because on the one hand, the federal leadership is talking along the same lines that.
Oh, I've noticed.
But look what's happening. America has become the largest producer of oil and gas for export in that same period of time, while all of the politicians have said they're going in the opposite direction. So I think we should just double down and decide we're going to double our oil and gas production, because truly, where else does America want to get its oil from? Do you want to get it from Iran? Do you want to get it from Venezuela? Or do you want to get it from safe Canada? So I think that we can do a lot to make sure that the Americans know that we are here to provide energy security. We are a great friend, great ally, great neighbor, and we just need to get the political leadership to realize that we are a friend.
Then my 3-word piece of advice would be stop being embarrassed about who you are. You have nothing to be embarrassed about at all.
That's great advice.
You said CBC is in the room, the state media. I would love to.